Hello, my wonderful artists. Happy New Year. We are back together creating, although virtually this week. I wanted to get started with a kind of messy project, something that we can do at home a little bit easier than we can in the classroom. You are going to need a few items from around the house in order to do this. So, lids are great. We're going to trace some circles. But we are making the paper plate poinsettia. I will upload this document to Google Classroom. So if you want to look at these in color, you can read about the poinsettia in the legend of the poinsettia, or poinsettia, depending on how you pronounce it. We're going to use a paper plate, or I'm going to show you how to do it on flat paper as well. So you don't have to have the supplies that are in this document in order to make these. First, you can have paper plates, but mine are that kind with the waxy stuff on top, and this obviously I can't paint over or I could paint over it, but you might not have paint at home. So you could use Sharpies on top of a paper plate if it has that kind of effect on it. And so first you're going to start off, if you have the plate, I'll show you how to do the paper version here in just a second. If you have the plate, you're going to start off by drawing, and this can be very difficult. Start off with kind of a dot in the middle, and then make your poinsettia leaves, which are a red Christmas flower. And you kind of make them look like raindrops. So mine aren't perfect, but it's hard to go over that little bump on the edge. If you have those really cheap, thin paper plates, this is perfect on those. So I'm just going to keep going on around. And they don't have to be like right next to each other, even overlapping. And it's okay if they do overlap, because perfection's not what we're going for here. Once you have it all drawn, then you would color in all of your leaves. So you would just have to stay within your lines, although if you messed up somewhere, we won't ever know because you're going to cut this out. So it can be a little tricky to cut this out if you're a younger student, but ask for your parents' help. Make sure they know you have the scissors before you begin cutting anything. That way they can make sure you're safe and you're not going to poke yourself or accidentally cut something you shouldn't be. Remember, if you're using Sharpies, to do it on a surface that is safe to use them on, so it's not going to bleed through onto mom or dad's kitchen table. That would make them very sad. You probably only need like red and green. Maybe if you had a fancy gold color or something like that, some people do, you could even use that. So that's how you would start it out on the paper plate. Now, if you have paint at home, you could get your paint out and grab a little paintbrush. You could paint these on, which I find very satisfying and a little bit easier to do. And what the edge of this paper plate is going to do for us is kind of give that rounded, curled up look that you would find in a real flower. So we would just fill these in. And I'm going to get this guy done so he can dry while I show you how to do it on paper. Now, before you get started, before you gather materials or anything else, watch this video all the way through one time. That way you have an idea of how you're going to do this with the supplies you have at your house. And you could even use a paper plate to put your paints on. I have a little resealable tray here so I don't ever waste any paint when I'm working at home, because I tended to do that a lot, but I thought about a new and fabulous way while we were all home with the shutdowns last year to seal my paint, and bought a container that seals so that my paint will stay wet, and there's a little sponge underneath it to keep some water in there, and it has been wonderful. I'm going to paint over the one I colored in just so they're all the same. but don't feel like you have to paint, because I know that's not something everyone has at home. So there you go. Super simple, super easy. Make sure you clean your brush out as soon as you're finished, and dry it to make sure that all of the paint is out. Sorry, I don't have my normal setup today. The place to stick that. So I'm going to set this to the side so it can dry. I'm going to move my paint out of the way because we don't need that right now. And I'm going to suggest a couple other things. If you have giant old paper, or maybe even a cardboard box from Christmas left over, and your parents don't want to keep it, you could even cut the top of the cardboard box off and use that to make your poinsettia on. So this is an old thin piece of paper I had laying around. Also right now, since it's the new year, I've been cleaning out a lot of supplies and different stuff around my house. And so I have the cardboard from my pizza. That would be a great starter surface for a poinsettia. So I might draw my petals on here and then paint them. Then I could add other layers with smaller circles on top. That would make a great effect. Now, if you don't have a circular one, you could always use a rectangle, draw the circle around it, and if you don't have the strength to cut it with your own two hands, that's okay. You could just leave it the square, paint your poinsettia in, and then add other layers over top of it, gluing them together. You still have a great poinsettia. So, I'm going to start off with this guy. And since he is brown, I have to paint him white. Another option there, slap a white piece of paper on top if it covers the whole thing. You can work like that too. I'm going to grab that paintbrush I need a bigger one. I'm just going to give this guy a nice coat of white paint. Now, if you don't have white paint, just draw directly on there, color it in with red, and then maybe get your parents to help you cut it out, because cardboard can be pretty thick. But I like a nice messy art project where there's paint involved, and I know that's not a supply everyone has at home, but I'm going to try and show those of you that do have paint at home how to do this. So I'm not even going to be super particular about getting it all perfect. You kind of do have to hold it down so it doesn't scooch all over the place. Make sure you have a placemat underneath whatever you're working on. Not Mom's fancy Christmas placemats, but a placemat that can get messy and paint on it and no one's going to be mad. It's always a key to keep Mom and Dad happy when you're making messy projects. Okay, just get that paint kind of scooched all in there. Go back and forth in different directions. And then you're going to set this aside to dry. So then you have a nice white surface to work with when you are ready. Sorry, paintbrush cleaning can be loud. All right, I'm just going to set that in there. When you're ready to add the red. Again, if you have white paint but you don't have red paint, you could paint the cardboard white and then add red with markers. Poinsettias are typically red. Do a little Google search and see what different kinds of poinsettias are out there. There are peach and white and reds and, you know, all kinds of different colors and combinations of colors. So there's lots and lots of options for different types of colors to use. So maybe you have the paint colors of something you like, but not the ones I'm using. That's totally fine as well. All right, on to the simpler version. I took my paper plate before I painted it. I turned it over, set it on my paper, held it down in the middle nice and tight, and traced this circle on a piece of sketchbook paper. Then I kind of held this up to the light so that I could see through it, and I just hand drew a smaller circle. Now, I found my lid, of course, now, but I could trace this as well. So lids off of peanut butter jars or anything you have laying around in your cabinets. Clorox wipe containers, lots of things are circular. Find something, a bowl, whatever. Just make sure they're two different sizes. Then, again with your pencil, you want to draw in oops, I always forget to start with the center dot, your petals. So you're just going to draw them in. If they kind of fall off, it's okay. No one's going to know. Just have to erase some pencil lines. So that looks kind of sparse, so I'm going to add just a couple more petals in here so that I kind of have a full looking flower. And so now that I have it kind of full, I'm happy with it, and I can do the very simple trick of erasing where my circle went through my petals on the edges. Fix those points. And then I would color it in. Again, you can use Sharpies, you can use regular Crayola markers, totally fine option for this. Color in the whole flower. What I like to do is start by, excuse me, tracing around all of my lines. And then I can color really fast by using just the side of my marker rather than the tiny little tip. Instead of getting skinny lines, I get nice thick ones, and it allows me to color faster. Also more evenly. And it's okay if you go outside the lines a little bit. We're going to cut that off here in just a moment, so it won't even matter. Now, if you're really into that watercolor effect look that I've taught you about before, grab a paintbrush and some water and spread this color around when you are done tracing the edges. You could create a watercolor poinsettia. Okay, that one's done. Now I'm going to go over here to this one. Find my pencil again. I'm going to draw my dot the first time. Make sure your leaves have a nice thick bottom section so that you don't cut them off when you begin the cutting process. Oops, this guy's going to stick out a little bit too. I have a hard time staying inside my circle. Okay, now that I'm done drawing, I'm going to go back, erase any lines of where I may have messed up. Don't want anyone to see my mistakes, right? Mistakes are proof that you're trying though, guys, so keep trying. On this one, I'm going to use a little bit of gold paint. Now, if you have a gold Sharpie, I do around here somewhere, I'm not sure where right now, a gold paint pen. I just got a new, let's see if I can find it, a new metallic brush pen. This is an awesome thing to use. Actually, let me just color it in with this. It kind of looks brown on screen, but once it dries, it's really shiny and kind of fun to use. So get out those Christmas presents. Find an old box or some paper. If you really wanted to get creative, you could make leaves and other decorations around your poinsettia once it's done and cut out with tissue paper or old wrapping paper. So I'm just going to show you the difference between this marker and here's a little one, some gold paint. I got it out, so I had to use it. Don't want to waste the paint. So I just have to go slow around my edges, and then I can go faster in the middle. So you can see this is a much lighter kind of color, but it still works beautifully. And I'm not really worried about my edges being perfect because we're going to cut them out. Now, if you're super lucky and you have glitter at home, after you're done coloring, either with marker or paint, and filling in all of your leaves, you could add a little bit of glitter to this just to make it sparkle. And I don't know if you guys have been to the grocery store lately, but Kroger usually has some that are like dusted with some sparkles. I'm not going to wait for mine to dry. I'm going to kind of show you what I'm talking about. I have the plethora of glitter at my fingertips. I know some of you do not have that, so please don't feel like you need to go buy glitter. But I'm going to add just like a circle of glue in the middle and then lines down the middle, oops, of each petal here. It's just a little bit of glue. Oh, I think I'm going to go with this one, which has got little stars and stuff in it. I'm just going to sprinkle. It doesn't need a lot, so I'm not going to like cover the whole page in glitter. Just enough to add a little sparkle. Now, if you don't have this, but you have puffy paint, you could do puffy paint on it. There are so many options. I have this like glittery puffy paint. It's kind of old, so I don't know how well it'll work, but it seems to be okay. You could use this. These essentially make a nice thin line. Maybe mine's gunked up. I didn't test this before talking. Anyway, it makes a really thin line of glitter glue. And so I was thinking, like, if I can get the green to work here. And I always test it somewhere outside of my project before I start, because this stuff can be quite finicky. Yeah. And I was just going to add in, if it will come out, some green glitter glue right to the middle of my poinsettia. So now that I have all of that craziness on there, which I know most of you will not have at home, but see all the sparkles. You can also do this however you want. If you want to draw on what looks like glitter with Sharpies or, you know, fun gluey pens or whatever you have at home. It can be jelly pens. Please go for it. All right, I have my 2 pieces. I'm not forgetting about those of you working on the paper plate. You will need 2 plates and 2 different colors of leaves, and you're going to have to let those dry. This one's pretty dry. Got a little spot there that's still tacky, but then you're going to cut them out and you're going to glue them together, and it's really just that simple. So, through the magic of television, I'm going to let this dry, and then I will meet you back for the cutting out and gluing together process. Okay, we are back. It's not quite dry, but we're close. And I kind of noticed something. When I put all this glitter in the middle, when I cut out this guy and I put him over top, he's going to cover up all that beautiful glitter. So I have another idea. I'm going to finish cutting this, and I kind of wanted to show you guys how I do this. So I cut off a lot of the excess paper, so kind of roughly around my circle. And then I hold it with one hand and guide my scissors towards where the paint meets, and I don't cut down in there too close. And then I just kind of pull these guys off because they kind of get hung up a little bit. So just aiming this kind of away from myself. My scissors are always pointing away from me. That's just scissor safety, which I know most of you know about. So keep working all the way around. And if your paint is still wet, it might get a little bit on your scissors, but a little wet rag or something can wipe those right off. I don't have tiny little scissors to use here, so I'm using my big giant ones. Please find something appropriate for your hands. Don't use giant kitchen scissors if you're a tiny little kindergarten or first grader. I want you to use scissors that are safe for you, okay? So these big giant scissors can really be dangerous if you can't hold on to them really well. All right, take all my scraps. Make sure you're cleaning up your mess as you go. It's much easier that way. Now, paper plate people. I've cut off some of the pieces, but again, same idea. Always cutting away from myself. Watch your fingers if you have to hold on to something so that you don't cut yourself. I did notice, because my paint wasn't completely dry, that my scissors kind of scratched some of it off, but that's okay. If you want to, you could go back in with your paint and touch that up. I don't really mind that scratched look. And actually, a really cool thing to show you. Let me grab the end of my paintbrush here, anything, even like a mechanical pencil with the lead not pushed out, and you could scratch in lines. Now this has to be acrylic paint or it probably won't peel off quite like this, but you can kind of give it some more character by doing that. This part wasn't quite dry. Now, a circle in the middle or some dots, whatever you choose to do there. Just some ideas. Thought I'd throw that out there. Now what I want to do is actually combine my paper and my paper plate together, because I thought that this would look way cooler. And if I really wanted to, I could even stack this one on top. So I have a 3-layer, 3 different, completely differently painted pieces. I'm going to finish these off with a decent sized glue dot, but not too much, guys. Now, since this is glitter glue, I only really need a little bit of paint there. Sorry, I got glitter all over my hand. And then just kind of tap them down in the middle and set them someplace safe to dry. If you're feeling like it, let me get this going again. Kind of have to give them a shake if they've settled. Doesn't always want to come out. I can just do some smaller glue globs here to kind of bring that green back up that I covered up when I glued them all together. Also, while they're drying, if you want to kind of mess with the way the leaves show or the petals show, you can kind of move them around, and I kind of like them in a staggered, so they're not all right on top of each other. I move them so that they're just kind of in between each other. So from this to this is how you get that. I hope you guys had fun. I hope you use materials that you have available at home. This should be exciting and should be enjoyable. It does not have to be glitter and glue and paint and all of the messiness that I showed you here. Do your best. If you're using cardboard, again, just go with stacking the things on top of each other. Maybe do a cardboard layer and then a paper plate layer and then a paper layer. Whatever you want. I know these are hard to find if you don't have a pizza at home to steal one from. Look through your holiday gifting stuff and see if you can't find something to use. Thanks, guys. See you very soon. Happy New Year.